The role of audit agencies, which is, I think, my favorite discussions which happened today. I think some very interesting facts were kind of put out there. What we're discussing today, before I think we get on to what we discuss, I think a very important question which I want to ask a lot of key stakeholders here, that are we really challenging the status quo today? Right? Are we really challenging the status quo with respect to media planning? And are we really challenging the status quo on the back of data? Right? So what we are here is to address some of the challenges which we are facing and what is it what we are really trying to solve for. And when we say we, is we as a media industry and not alone, standalone as Zapper or a particular agency, but what we as media industry are really trying to solve for. I think some of the things which we are trying to answer and all of us always look for to answer when we look for media planning is the first one is who. Who is my consumer? Who is that person I'm trying to convert to my product? Who is the person who is using my product? So we are very traditionally used to planning basis the current parameters which we have, which is the demographic, age, gender and affluence. Can we further deep dive and understand from the broader spectrum of only that demographic, who's my actual consumer? Can I understand from the SSC A, B, males 15-34, who actually consumes or uses my product, and what is that TV viewership habit, right? So first question which we are trying to solve for is who is my consumer? Second thing what we are trying to solve for as an industry is where is my consumer, right? So we know first is who, and if we've identified who, then the idea is to identify where is my consumer. Is the consumer on digital? Is the consumer on TV? Is the consumer listening to radio? Is the consumer somewhere else? Maybe only on digital, only on OTT. So the second part is that today most of us are aware. Today most of us are aware that most of the media platforms are working in silos. When we're doing media planning, we look at each of the media platforms as silos, which kind of leads to massive overlaps between different platforms and also leads to massive inefficiencies. Because we're looking at, and there are a couple of published reports from Google and YouTube, which says the overlap between TV and digital is close to anywhere from 85 to 95%. Right? So if you're looking at where to engage, we need to first understand where a consumer is to be able to engage with it. The third part is the number of times we need to expose a user with the communication of the brand. Right? Is prime time the right time slot? Is non-prime time the right time slot to expose my consumer? Is old TVC the better creative to expose, or is the new TVC more efficient to expose to the user? Right? So the third problem statement is the number of times I need to expose the user across media platforms, and within a particular media platform, is 2 the right frequency, is 3 the right frequency, or is 5 the right frequency? In fact, actually a lot of FMCG players of late often ask us and throw this challenge to us, saying that I have been planning at a 5 plus 50 million reach, but is 5 plus the right frequency is an answer which I don't have. Right? I have been planning, I'm a confectionery brand, and I've been planning at a 3 plus because it's a clutter, but is that the right frequency is a question which you're often asked to solve for. And the last one is so what, which is the impact. So if you don't know who our consumer is, if you don't know where to engage with that consumer, and if you don't have a very concrete answer of how many times do I need to show the communication, then what is the impact am I measuring? Do we have an answer for actually, while in digital there's a lot of transparency, there's a lot of individual level transparency and measurement, but are we able to actually plug that particular individual whom we engaged on digital? Now, a very common thread, which is among all the 4 things which we talked about, we felt that the problem is data. And more so when I say data, it's the lack of data. The lack of data and the scalability of data available today for us to solve and try and answer for some of the things which we have asked. Right? Now when I say lack of data, there are two things. One is the lack of data in terms of individual level data. At an individual level, can I really understand what the media consumption habits of a particular individual is? Not for a household, but for an individual. What does that person watches? How much of that person watches? Where does he watch? And what is his content preferences? The second in data is how granular is your data. And when we say granular is how granular, today we're used to planning 1 million plus, 0.1 to 1, metro, urban versus rural. But is the data able to answer you some of the questions for a brand which says that should I do a print in a Lucknow or should I do a print in a Nasik? Should I do a radio in a Pune or should I do a radio in Trivandrum? So how granular is the another thing which we feel there's a need gap. Whether it's a city level or whether it's a hyper-local level. A very interesting analysis which we did for one of the FMCG brands, and they gave us Chennai as a city to analyze the TV campaign. We did hyper-local level, which is the area level analysis for the TV campaign. And I believe the eastern belt of Chennai, which is the T Nagar belt of Chennai, is supposed to be the premium belt. When we analyzed their campaign, the insights which came out was that the particular TV campaign underdelivered in the eastern belt of Chennai, which is actually the premium belt of Chennai as a city. So while the brand as an FMCG had wanted to target only the premium areas and the premium audiences, but when we actually looked at a very granular data analysis, we figured that the brand actually did not reach out to the premium areas or the premium audiences. And that is where the importance of granular data analysis comes in. And that's where also I think a lot of panel discussions which I attended, which happened previously, a lot of common things which, I think two very common things which got picked up. One was data and one was technology. I think MAPS also kind of pointed out how technology is driving marketing. How we feel like how technology today is also driving big data, right? And today we at Zappar are analyzing data at scale. We are today analyzing data at an individual level, profiling more than 100 million individuals, more than 480 channels. So that's the mammoth of data repository we are talking about. We're talking about analyzing close to about 200 billion TV minutes, which would be 20x of what Shazam does globally. And that's the kind of mammoth of data repository we are talking about. But how do we do it? So how do we collect individual level data? And how do we collect the granular level data? We capture that through our technology, our proprietary technology, audio fingerprinting, which is also called as audio content recognition. The technology resides in various apps and publishers, which captures the ambient audio, through which we are able to build a comprehensive profile of those 100 million users with respect to the media consumption habits. If there are any questions around technology or privacy, that we can always take offline, but I'm hoping there could be questions around it. Now let's see through some use cases. How are brands, some of the brands, really leveraging technology and data, right? And this will also go back to some of the questions which I had asked of who, where, the number of times, and the impact. And a lot of times, I think over the last 3 to 4 years, a lot of products which we have built, and a lot of solutions which we have built, and I think have come from brands really throwing challenges at us. Brands really asking us a lot of questions which have not been answered till now, and we going back to them with specific solutions of how do we work together to answer some of those questions being asked. So this is for one of the leading cosmetics brand. And the problem statement which they gave us was for a TV campaign, where should we put our money, where should we invest our money? TV today, as all of us know, is obviously one of the highest, is where the highest money is being spent by every brand stakeholder today, right? And the question was that, well, I wanted to do TV for my particular brand, but where should I invest on TV? Now, the idea what we did for them was a TG-based media planning. So we did a little reverse mechanism of media planning and helped them with some actionable insights. Through a survey which we do among our user base, we were able to actually gather and identify actual consumers of the particular product. Apart from just identifying who are the people who actually use the product, we were also able to capture what are the brand preferences. We were also able to capture what is the point of purchase for them to buy the product. Right? Now, when we were able to gather and understand who are the people who actually use the product, what brand do they prefer and where do they purchase the product, we could go back into our system and check what their media consumption habits are. Now, very interesting thing which, so we were working very closely with the client lead at one of the agency on this particular project. And in a very summary, when we asked them, did this help, did this not help, they told us that earlier, the way they used to do the media planning, they would look at where the competition is spending. So they will typically look at the competition, obviously they were number 2 in the particular cosmetics as a category. They looked at, okay, the competition was spending on these 30 channels, these were the kind of ad spots, this is the kind of money they spend. And they would try and plow that money on those channels the competition was spending. But not necessarily that the brand consumer was on those channels. So hence what we helped them do was actually, through this particular understanding who the consumer is and their media consumption habits, from some of the actionable insights which we shared, was from a frequency-based media planning. We helped them to do reach-based media planning. And that is what came out from the insights. Planning which was based, like I said, who, was not really based purely on demographic, but planning was based on the actual consumer, right? So among the 2244 or 2245 females who could be my TG, there could be only an X percentage who could be my actual consumer. Another key thing which we were able to help, which is exclusivity index is something, right? So people who are exposed to my ad versus people who are exposed to my competition ad. But there are also people who could only be exposed to the competition ad but not their own brand, right? And that is also another insight which we were able to give them to be able to counter the SOV against the competition in the category. Now the second use case is about another brand who gave us a challenge or a problem statement of how do I allocate my media spends across platforms. So just not about how much do I spend on TV and where do I spend on TV, but how do I spread my media spends across all the media platforms, right? TV, digital, outdoor, radio. Now through our technology, we are obviously able to understand if the same user, if a user has seen an ad on TV or not, and we can reshort for them on digital. So hence we integrated TV and digital very seamlessly, and we are able to provide them incremental reach, which I feel is a very key thing for our FMCG brands, in a very deterministic way and which is unduplicated. And how we did that was, typically in a media plan, we look at the end-tail channels as the frequency channels. But the kind of percentage of incremental reach they will add will only vary from 1 to 2%. What if I were to replace those end-tail channels with Zapper as a platform and give you the same incremental reach at half of the cost? And that's how we were able to seamlessly integrate TV and digital. Not only that, we went a step further, and we also said, let's understand your TV campaign. Let's also understand your TV campaign at a city level, and we will come back and tell you that in which city do you need to invest with respect to your other mediums, whether it's an outdoor, whether it's a radio. So in which cities were you under-penetrated, and in which cities do you need to back it up with other platforms. The last use case in terms of the optimal. The last one is the optimal frequency. And like I said in the beginning, a very common question asked by most of the FMCG brands is 3 plus the optimal frequency or 5 plus the optimal frequency, right? And for different categories, it's going to vary, but do we have a complete answer, or why do we do a 5 plus planning or a 3 plus planning? So we did a series of research across categories to be able to really help answer that particular question for an FMCG brand. We were able to gather and we were able to understand what is the impact of a brand recall across creatives, what is the impact of a brand recall across time slots, also able to kind of give actionable insights post that particular piece. So for a category like soaps, which is fairly low involvement but high clutter, you need a higher frequency. For a category like an Atta brand, for example, it's a low involvement and there's fairly low clutter and hence a low frequency. So we were able to kind of give a lot of actionable insights to brands to be able to implement their actual media plans. I think in the end, I'll just leave everybody with some food for thought and everybody to kind of ask this questions and ask their teams when they go back on Monday morning. No, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You planned everything for us, including our Monday mornings. Fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. A big round of applause. An awesome session. I take this opportunity to invite